All right, everybody, welcome back here to the Magic Online Champion Showcase. It is one final match to take it all. I am so excited. We have watched just two grueling, essentially, 8-person pods. We saw the Vintage Cube here in the morning where, well, one of our players, Matthew Wright, went 3-0-6-0. Dominated, absolutely dominated with his Gruul smash deck in the cube. And then we have Kikidis, who really went all the way with this teched out Boros Energy. Boros Energy, definitely the deck of the tournament, and it has been just an incredibly fun thing to watch. Anuraag, before we get started, you got anything to say about how this event has gone so far?
I think we've had some pretty incredible moments just in Magic. I think for me, one of the big ones was just watching the clock tick away in one of our matches of Vintage Cube. It was Tangrams versus Andre, and it was like tick-tock, tick-tock. Every second mattered, and I could feel like, while we were watching, I was holding my breath because I couldn't tell who was going to win one way or the other. And in the final moments, we got to see Andre take it. That was such an exhilarating, happening for me. What about you, Corey?
Honestly, that brings up a really good point because, think if that clock went a little bit different for Tangrams. I still think Tangrams had the best Vintage Cube deck, even though Matthew Wright went 3-0-6-0. Maybe there would be a different player in the finals if that clock went that way. Who's to really tell? But for me, it's gotta be that Mogged moment here. That's surveilling that into the graveyard, or my close second would be the Piotr versus Andre semifinal. So I love that both of our favorite matchups were round 2 with Andre involved in them. And that one was just the masterful play from Andre up against Piotr Glukowski, taking out, Teamer Breach there. But honestly, so many great moments so far in the Magic Online Champion Showcase. If you are ever interested in trying to qualify for this event, well, there are qualifications running all the time. There's all these kind of events, so make sure to go to magiconline.com to get some more information on that, and maybe you'll have us knuckleheads here chatting about you for the next season. So we're not going to waste any more time. We are getting into the finals here where both of these players have already locked up their World Championship invite and a ton of cash. Now they're just playing for a measly $4,000 here in one match of Magic. You ever played that kind of stakes in a Magic tournament, Anuraag?
I'd be so nervous, man. You don't even know. That's so much money, and it really just boils down to how much preparation people have done, how well tuned you are with your deck, matchups, and things like that. It's gonna be high stakes, and that's kind of like what I like. I love the pressure. I love thinking about all of the things that could happen, and the players in the hot seats, they must also be in this. I mean, if it's scary for me, imagine what it must be like for them. So we'll see how the matches play out. For one, I know that it's going to be exciting. That's the one thing I can guarantee.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think for me, if I was in these spots, the round 3 of each of those pods, that's the stressful match because you're just playing for so much with the World Championship invite. That's a tournament that is just so special, always awesome. If you say you're a world champion at something, everyone knows. You say, I won a pro tour, I won the MOCS, people are like, cool, what's that? But if you say I'm the world champion at anything, it carries some weight. So, maybe the shoulders are a little down for these players now. Just 4K, no big deal here. So, all right, let's jump into it. Let's see these two players head to head here in our grand finale. We got Matthew Wright on the left, and we got Kikidis Mogged on the right here. Matthew made it, of course, via Pioneer, Popper for Mogged, and of course, Vintage Cube to get to this spot for Matthew. And then we just saw Boros Energy get Mogged all the way to the finals here. And, good news for Mogged in a couple of reasons because, this is still modern. So you still get to play the deck that got him here. And good news because, it's a pretty good matchup for Mogged. So let's take a look at Matthew's deck list here and see what he played. We haven't seen Matthew in Modern at all. And it's Dimir Oculus. Walk us through this one.
Yeah, so this is an archetype we got to see a little bit earlier, and it was actually battling against Boros Energy. So that match, that result was a precursor for what's about to happen. Well, Matthew's got his work cut out for him. This is a blue-black tempo archetype that really leverages a bevy of counterspells to control the opponent while also developing card advantage threats in the form of Psychic Frog, as well as heavy hitters like Abhorrent Oculus and Murktide Regent, noting, that this is a lot of strain on the graveyard. So we've got cards like Unearth even to synergize with the Oculus, and then rounding it up with Orcish Bowmeisters. And if we want to compare the counter spell suite, so to speak, of this list versus the one that we saw prior. It's pretty much the same. 3 spell snares, 4 counter spells, force of negation. I think the only real difference is that Sink into Stupor is they've got Matthew's got 2 copies versus the one that we saw earlier.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other big difference is just Baumeister. You know, Baumeister wasn't in the other list, and it can be actually pretty nice, you know, especially at dealing with, like, the, you know, the Regavans that are being played a little bit more in recent times as the ring gets banned. But, you know, we saw this match before. I don't know if Baumeister is, like, the end-all, be-all to get you caught up. And, I mean, we saw Fur MTG on Dimir Oculus that has been playing a ton of Magic. You know, maybe if he would have played 15 matches a day, Anuraag, he probably would have got there, but only playing 14 matches a day per year probably just wasn't enough, huh?
Yeah, I mean, who's to say? This is a very nuanced deck, right? Like, one of the things when you have a deck that has as many conditional counter spells as the Dimir Oculus deck is,
yeah,
you really do need to line up your answers perfectly to the threats that your opponent is presenting. You never want to be caught in a moment where, like, you know, you spell snared something like a Goblin Bombardment and now your force negation has no targets, or, you know, those kind of situations where your allocation wasn't perfect and then suddenly a key spell slips through your shields and you know, causes havoc.
Yeah, and the flip side of that, you know, you have these nut draws where you can just go, like, turn 1 Thought Scour yourself, turn 2 Unearth, 2 Oculus. You know, like, I mean, that is a play that you can do. Of course, you got to get absurdly lucky, but that is a play where, you know, if, let's say Matthew Wright was on the play, he could say go, and Mogged has to face down 14 power. You know, I mean, obviously the chances are very, very slim, but the ceiling on this deck is through the roof and the floor is quite low. Like you were saying, Boros Energy, the ceiling and the floor are basically at the same spot and they're both pretty high up there. So let's take a look at Matthew Wright's opponent, and we just saw it get it done here. Kikidis, aka Mogged here. And I'm sorry, I'm not even going to try to butcher Kikidis' first name. You know, I just don't want to absolutely butcher it. So Kikidis is playing Boros Energy here, Anuraag.
Yeah, so this is a deck that we just saw, you know, battling in the mirror match, came out ahead. And I gotta say, this matchup is going to be pretty favorable here for the Boros side of things, at least, you know, from my play experience. Yeah. You know, you have the 1-2 punch of Guide of Souls into Ocelot Pride, which the Baumasters are definitely going to have something to say about that in the early stages of the game. But the one thing that Boros Energy can do that will really cause problems for the Dimir side is just going wide and then closing out with a card as punishing as Goblin Bombardment. Now, notably, we only have 2 copies of Goblin Bombardment in this deck, so maybe we're not going to be able to line it up as quickly as we would like to, but that is something that is, we saw how much strain it caused in the other matchup where every single threat suddenly turned into, you know, a little bit of damage that allowed for something like a Flage to just cross the line. I'll give a shout out here to Static Prison. This is a card that wasn't in Andre's earlier list, but is a card that is going to be pretty good against the Dimir side as just a very cheap, flexible removal spell that can allow you to play multiple spells in the turn and overwhelm the amount of counter magic your opponent can deploy in a single turn.
Yeah, totally well said. So I think there's going to be some really important things. I think Matthew Wright is begging for this die roll. So we're going to jump on in. Here comes a match of Magic for $4,000 in our grand finale. And nope, Matthew is not only on the draw, but mulligan to a 1-lander, and it's a tap land. Ouch.
Yeah, oof. And I'm gonna just put injury on top of all of this. There is that critical Goblin Bombardment that you know, we're gonna expect to see to come into play next turn. You could play Force of Negation, but then you're basically going down from a mulligan to 6 to a mulligan to 5 because you have to pitch that extra card, and it's looking dicey.
And there isn't a land on top. We see the Spell Snare put away. And to be fair, though, if there was a land on top, I mean, I guess you still keep it, but Regavan's going to eat it anyways. So this Surveil is actually just 100% blanked. So, yeah, I mean, you just want to make... I honestly would have left the Spell Snare on top. I mean, I guess you are trying to create a critical mass of cards in your graveyard. So I guess you still bin it. But, you know, if you hit a Baumeister or something, you feel bad.
Yeah. Speaking of Baumasters, that is going to be one of the ways that we are able to sort of keep the early game alive here.
Wait, Anuraag, look what we just saw again. Surveil Flage into the graveyard. Mogged did it again.
Wait, okay, Mogged must be the master of doing this because that play like happens once like in a million years, and
Yeah.
twice already over 2 matches.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we asked the players, for a picture beforehand, and, it's just really ironic that Kikidis' picture is just an actual portrayal of him surveilling Flage into the yard. Really awesome stuff.
Now, on the other side, unfortunately, there's no second land here for Matthew, which means this game is probably over. Boros Energy tends to be one of those decks that is excruciatingly painful at punishing, any sort of stumbles or things like that. So,
yeah, all of you watching at home right now, remember how I was saying, hey, like, we really need the die roll. We just need everything to go right for Matthew. That's not happening right now. This has been the opposite. Everything has gone right for Mogged, and everything that could possibly go wrong for Matthew has went wrong.
Right, so now we got 2 Flages in the graveyard, Ragavan going unchecked, and even have access to Goblin Bombardment. So, Matthew at 12, and there's still no land here, so...
Oh,
yeah,
God.
I think the writing's on the wall for this one. Okay, wait, we picked up a Misty.
Okay. So we have the Misty. We can Fatal Push one of these threats. I honestly think you have to Fatal Push the Guide of Souls. Just so your Baumeister can deal with the Ragavan, and then I guess you can block Flage. Or, you take the flip side here. You just take a beating from these creatures, and you hope, which is a weird way to say this, but you hope that Mogged plays a Flage this turn, so then you can Fatal Push that and try to deal with these 1-drops later. But, I mean, this is all kind of far-fetched stuff on coming back.
Right, exactly. And we're going to actually just see the line of saving the Fatal Push. That makes a lot of sense here. I mean, how else are you supposed to handle the Titan? It's such a problem.
All that being said, right now, I don't think the Titan can come back unless... Kikidis decides to play Bombardment and sacrifice both his threats, which I just don't think is going to happen. I think we're going to see Fable, we're going to see Goblin Bombardment, and I imagine the Fable is probably going to get forced here right away. Both threats are just devastating.
That's really interesting. I think you could probably get a lead on the fact that there is a Force of Negation in the hand based on the fact that, we just haven't really been playing spells, and when we have a curve so low, it probably means we have responsive spells. So to me, what I'm reading here is that Kikidis actually says, all right, this Fable is bait. Goblin Bombardment is the more important spell. So I'm going to sequence in a way, especially telegraphing the Shockland first, that I have, some options available to me.
Yeah.
That Fable is going to sort of go out there and get countered, only to have the true spell that Mogged wanted to resolve be cast now.
Or hear me out. Both spells were unbeatable, and he cast them at random because it doesn't matter.
You know what? Given the board state, I actually think that's absolutely accurate. I like to think that... there's a classic game state that I call winning with a ham sandwich, when you're so far ahead that it doesn't matter what you win with. You could win with like a 1-2, and I think we've kind of reached that board state here from Mogg's perspective.
Yeah, no, that is totally reasonable as well. But this is really interesting to me. Decided to Fatal Push the Ragavan here instead of Baumastering it. Very interesting.
Yeah, actually, because Baumeister doesn't particularly line up well against the Guide of Souls.
Yeah. And this is also pretty interesting because now the Ocelot Pride comes down, so we'll see when this Baumeister gets fired off, because if it doesn't get fired off, there's just not going to be a spot where this Flage comes back this turn, but Kikidis is just okay with that and decides to to cast the Flage, mostly to get another energy there, so that the Guide of Souls would send that to the sky to be able to prevent any blocking with Baumeister there. And that's game 1 coming to Kikidis.
Yeah, it didn't feel particularly close there. An unfortunate stumble from Matthew Wright means that the Boros deck is just going to go unchecked here. And taking a look at sideboarding, we see Matthew taking, thinking about how to transition into the next game. Meanwhile, I see, what is that? A copy of Oust, a copy of Surgical Extraction, and Ghost Vacuum coming in here. These are all pretty interesting, the Surgical especially.
Yeah, Surgical, this is all just to shut down the Unearth package alone, but just really recognizing that a lot of these cards are not good. You know, the Blood Moon's not very good, the Thraben Charms are quite weak, so I think this is more of a case of what Kikidis has to take out, more than what he exactly wants. Like, the cards are fine, but, you know, I don't think this is a matchup that Mogged was really like, okay, I need to beat Dimir Oculus. Like, no, I can just submit my same 60 and still be favored. You know, he wanted to beat the Eldrazi's, beat the Breach, and maybe be set up, you know, for the mirror here. That was definitely what's on his mind. And all that being said, you know, Matthew's list does improve post-board, where I think Mogg's list basically stays the same. But the fact that Matthew Wright gets Toxic Deluge and EE, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. And those are the kind of cards that you absolutely want to see, because the way the games play out, you really are only losing when your opponent goes super wide, just getting in a bunch of tokens into play that you can't effectively 1-for-1 with. And, you know, having the Deluge to sort of clean everything up in one, you know, one sweep is exactly how you want to improve the direction you want to be taking going into the next game here.
Okay, next game, here we are. Nile Spellbombs got brought in from Matthew Wright, just recognizing how terrifying Flage is, and it's a cantrip, so makes sense to me. Get that in there, goes with the turn 1 Spellbomb, and has mana to cast the spells, but, you know, that being said, you know, this is not the busted draw from Dimir Oculus either.
No, it isn't. And one thing that I'm kind of interested to see is how we're going to leverage this Force of Negation. I think it's very important to sort of keep parity and counter cards like Goblin Bombardment, but I just don't know if it's worth pitching a valuable blue card, because you look at your options here, both are kind of essential. So we'll see how it plays out here.
I think regardless, this is going to eat a counter spell, as, you know, even if this resolves, if you Baumeister the token, like, that still feels quite bad, as Johnny's going to flip. And right now, Mogg's like, okay, here's my kitty cat bait, because, well, I have another one, and, wow, resolves. So, I mean, this leads me to believe that we are going to just Fatal Push first, because, I mean, if you Baumeister right now, sure, you can attack for 2 to the flip to Johnny, but yeah, decides to just go for this, goes to Fatal Push, and then can Baumeister the 2/1 cat at his leisure.
Yeah, pretty solid play here. We still need a couple more cards to put into the graveyard to actually get this Oculus online, but this is probably one of the better setups here for you know, Matthew Wright, where the board is relatively contained. We have answers to some of the tokens. Nothing is going too crazy yet. The only problem is that Mogged has 7 cards in hand, so has yet to sort of unveil the true master plan that you know, you see at the top of your screen.
Yeah, and I love this. Being able to double spell here, I was going to be curious if he was going to, you know, like go Goblin Bombardment plus Guide of Souls, or if we're going to see just all the creatures to the battlefield and just kind of say, yeah, if you have the 1 Toxic Deluge, you have it. And I guess, you know, that play is still online. The one play I was pretty sure he wasn't going to make was the just cast a Fable. You know, you want to double spell up against a counter spell deck, and like, now what do? Do you counter this one? I feel like you have to.
I am in the same boat, Corey. I think you have to kind of counter this because the board is going to start to get wide. The other thing that's really important too is you're denying energy by countering this. So, you know, all in all, this one seems like a pretty, a nice one to counter, I guess. Are we checking to see what's on top to see maybe if we have that Toxic Deluge? I guess that would be the exception too.
Nope, that was a good play as well. So now we do a graveyard check, and the Oculus is, you know, very, very close to being online. You got to exile 6 cards. We got 5 in there. Now, do you consider right away, or do you sack Nile Spellbomb to try to get this Arboreal Oculus just into play right away, or are you a little more conservative? The answer is sack the Spellbomb. If you draw into it, great, cast it. If not, you can do something else here. How do you like that play? That's interesting.
Yeah, so have we yet paid for... No, we're not paying for Nile Spellbombs. We're actually not drawing a card.
Oh, that's a huge sign. Then, of course, you're putting a 6 card into the yard. You can just Surgical the Oculus in the graveyard. And, wow, of course, Mogged is all on top of this. There's only one reason why you wouldn't pay. And I'm pretty sure... Oh, I guess that one you can't choose the order of how it sacks.
No, it's not, because Nile Spellbomb
Yeah.
has to go to the graveyard for the ability.
Yeah.
Unlike, you know, something like the Titans where you can sequence them. This
Yeah,
is
okay.
basically forced sequencing. So really good heads up play here, and we're time walking you know, the Oculus player here with the surgical extraction. I mean, you Mogged, you're playing out of your mind here, and with $4,000 on the line, this is the time to be doing that.
What an absolute sicko. Like, look at this. Look at the spot that he just put Matthew Wright in. You have to force it. I don't even think it's a consideration. I think Matthew is just thinking, like, how did I get here? You know, how am I in such a rough spot right now? But, like, I don't see a world where you can't force this, because you lose a card in your hand already. You know, so you force this, and now Matthew Wright's entire turn is give away Nile Spellbomb without getting value and tapping out, so that now Mogged is able to just slam Fable or the Goblin Bombardment, or, I mean, you know Oculus is in the hand. Mogged knows it now. There's no question about it. You know, so like, I could easily see a play, Thraben Charm, exile your graveyard, Goblin Bombardment, attack, go. Like, that looks great to me.
I absolutely agree with you. And something that I'm thinking about here too is whether or not we telegraphed a bit too hard here with that Nile Spellbomb. I mean, I don't know if there's a world where we could have cracked it at a less obvious moment in order to get this Oculus into play here. I think
I would have considered.
either way.
I would have considered to start for sure, because then that's a way of concealing it. Like, let's say you consider you draw a land. Do you think Mogged fires off the surgical in response to that? Maybe. Probably not, though.
Yeah, I think the downside is what happens if you don't draw the land, and that's why Matthew took such an aggressive line. Plus,
Then you
you're kind of
Bowmaster.
banking-
Then you Bowmaster a cat, and you feel okay with it. Like, that's what I would have done. But obviously, in hindsight, it's so easy for us to be up on our high horses and say, I would have done this play because I have perfect information. But if you're going to try to get 6 cards into your graveyard anyways, try to hit consider and hit a land, because if you brick into a spell. You know, you're at least you have another thing that maybe deals with creatures or something like that.
Right. Great call out there, actually. That's something very, very interesting to think about in terms of the sequencing. I think the board state that Matthew was really going for was kind of like that Christmas land, sort of like cherry ice cream sort of thing, where you had Oculus in play, Force of Negation, pitching the Consider, and, you know, you start to build your own board. But, like, Mogged saw right through and said, hey, not only am I going to try to take away your copy in hand, I'm going to follow up here, go down a card, and make sure that the one that you do now for sure have is going to stay in your hand for what is probably the rest of the match.
Yeah, and we can kind of see what would have happened. We would have considered into Spell Snare on top. I think you would have been priced in to put that into your graveyard, and whatever Matthew Wright draws next would have been the card that he would have considered into. So we'll see quite shortly how that would have played out if we would have took a different line. But, you know, if he would have just sacked the Spell Bomb, paid the black, drew the Spell Snare, that would have not looked very great, you know, so.
Right.
But we'll know next turn with what we draw from Matthew's side if it was a nice one. But the one thing going on here is we can Bowmaster, and we can kill the cat and double block if we want.
Yeah, unfortunately, the cat's just going to get sacked to the Goblin Bombardment.
Oh,
That
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
goes
yeah,
to show
of
the
course,
strength
of
of
course.
that card once it's resolved in the matchup. Ooh, wait, this
Yeah.
is actually kind of spicy.
Yeah, so now this is forcing the cat to die, I guess. Wow, sacks it in response. I guess it's kind of the same, because now you don't get the body. So the Orcish Bowmaster fizzles. That was a sweet little interesting Goblin Bombardment line there. And then we see Fable the Mirror Breaker come down. We can consider in response to see if we hit Force of Negation.
But even then,
And-
pitching Force and Negation, or, you know, pitch casting Force and Negation doesn't feel great, because
Look at, oh God. I hate to be harping on that last turn, but Murktide was put into the yard. We would have just slammed a Murktide with the 7 cards that would have been in the yard, and Surgical. You know, maybe Mogged still Surgical's on the stack, and then you wouldn't draw Murktide, but having a Murktide on this battlefield would look pretty good.
I agree. And looks like we're getting in that situation. Just like one turn of getting tripped up over your own shoelaces, and now what was going to be a completely convincing scenario for Matthew Wright has turned into an absolute debacle. So at this point...
And, sorry to interrupt you there, but and on top of all that, Surgical's in the sideboard. It's a one-of for Kikidis, and I wouldn't necessarily think that's a card you snap bring in. Like, I think it's fine. You know, Ghost Vacuum, I think is a snap inclusion, but I don't think it's a card that I would automatically think, be like, I'm playing Oculus, they have a surgical, you know, like, sure, it beats the unholy, the unearthed Aborian Oculus kind of plan, but that's kind of it. So I'm backing up Matthew's play a little bit more as I talk about it.
Yeah, fair enough. That tracks. I mean, Surgical is also often considered one of those cards that is the most overboarded in all of Modern. But in this instance, I think, you know, I've seen Mogged has convinced me that there are great practical applications for Surgical. And I guess the other consideration, too, to think about is like, when you're looking at the Boros Energy deck list, you may, in a vacuum, say like, hey, Surgical Extraction is not that great. But then when you evaluate in the context of the cards that might be coming out, maybe then it suddenly becomes a real decision that you need to play around. Either way, I don't think it's something that I would fault Matthew for not really considering. And the way the turns were playing out.
And this is just game. And that's it. That is Mogged taking it down. Kikidis is the champion of the Magic Online Champion Showcase. And look at that. Barely even cracks a smile. I mean, he is just all business there. I saw a little smirk there, though. I think he's like, man, how many flages am I going to surveil into the yard? And just locks it up here. I'm so impressed with Mogged. I think he absolutely dominated this event. Anuraag, really cool stuff.
Yeah, the last game kind of showed us just what his appetite is for the modern metagame, and just like understanding like reads and tells and things like that just shows that not just great at Modern, but Magic in general. So very fitting for, you know, someone who's been playing as long as Kikidis has to take this trophy. I mean, it's a fantastic accomplishment. Very, very well done. And I'm happy for your success.
Yeah, super happy for him. And honestly, if I ever think of, you know, just in a vacuum, in a ghost vacuum here, if I ever just think of who would be a very deserving Magic Online champion, you know, like I don't care the branding of this style of event, who would I think is like, all right, a Magic Online champion through the decades? I'd be thinking Raptor. I'd be thinking FF Freak. I'd be thinking Mogged. You know, I mean, this is one of the names that we look at every challenge. It's like, what? Mogged top 8'd 2 challenges today? What? You know, next day, Mogged top 8'd 3 challenges, and I'm not exaggerating. Go to Mogged's, you know, Twitter, and you really see how dominant he is across all these formats. You know, he's playing Vintage, he queued with Pauper, you know, all this kind of stuff, plays all the formats, a very deserving champion, and it's nice to see his success at Magic Online isn't just isolated to this platform. You know, he definitely has went out into the Pro Tours. Maybe he doesn't have that top 8 yet, but he has these finishes where he's top 32, top 16, knocking on the door of, you know, having one of these insanely powerful and illustrious careers. So it sounds like we got ourselves an interview with Arya Karamchandani. I want to hear this. Let's hear from Mogged.
Alright, congratulations on your victory. Really masterfully played. Very well done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that final match of the finals was truly stunning. It's really well piloted by you. That surgical on the Oculus in response to Spellbound Crack, really like next level play. Really, really well done. Really well deserved. How does it feel?
It feels very good. It has been a dream of mine to win the Magic Online Championship Series. I've been a grinder for so long, and I think I really deserve it.
Congratulations. Well done. You brought Boros Energy to the tournament. That was the deck you won with. There's been like a few bans and unbans recently. Modern shook up a little bit, but Boros is like still tested and true. What made you choose that deck rather than one of the many, many other options?
I thought there were only 2 realistic options. It would either be like Temur Breach or Boros Energy. Mm-hmm. Basically, Temur Breach kind of beats Boros Energy, but Boros Energy beats everything else. And I thought if I registered my sideboard with enough like hate cards, I would make the matchup like more even. So I wouldn't run any risk at all if I just brought Boros Energy. Like I would either have like good matchups or like 50-50 matchups. And I got very rewarded. Like I got kind of lucky. I didn't pair into any of the Temur Bridge players, and I just played matchups that I like mostly. So my deck choice rewarded me.
Well, excellent call and very well piloted. what were you thinking coming into the draft section for this event?
I was thinking that because the thing with Vintage Cube, especially this one, is it's not that easy to try to build combo decks. Like I think so many pieces are contested, so I wanted to play a mid-range deck that has enough like hand disruption or effects like I forget, like 3 mana to exile a permanent, and then I'm forgetting the name. But basically, I wanted to play like kind of a mid-range deck, if possible. And I thought my deck was okay, but it wasn't like the most powerful. So I could end up like 1-2 like I did.
Okay. Well, you certainly made up for it in Modern. Excellent deck choice and excellently played. You were talking a little bit about before this event about your team and your preparation for this event. So how did that work out? How did you all kind of prep for this tournament together? And is there anyone on that side that you want to thank or shout out?
Yeah, I want to thank my team and big shout out to Arc Dota. Like I'm basically like following most of what they recommended for the list. And the rest of the Team World Council, like they helped me with. We had like a meeting and we finalized the slots. And yeah, like Menguchi, like Zender Hasi, all these people. There's probably too many, but yeah.
Oh, very well done. And I mean, now you won the championship in addition to the title and like a pretty hefty amount of prize money. You also qualify for Worlds. What does that mean to you?
I was Worlds last year. I didn't have the result I expected. This time, hopefully I will do better. I will put my all as every time because it's my dream to be the champion. And MOCS win was the first step towards that.
Well, congratulations on qualifying again. I'm sure this year will go better, and I mean after this victory, I'm sure you'll crush it there. And again, congrats on your finish, and look forward to seeing you at Worlds.
Thank you so much.
God, I just love that. I am so hyped for Mogged, and I really loved his explanation in Modern. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Says the one bad match of his teamer, and you kind of crush everything else, like we were saying. And with enough sideboard hate, you can really level the playing field. And I mean, he 4-0'd Modern and is a well-deserving MagicOnline championship, or well-deserving MagicOnline champion. And I love the fact that he says, like, I deserve it. So many people, including myself, if I ever do well in a tournament, it's kind of the, like, you pull yourself back, like, I got lucky or whatever. Like, Mogged knows he didn't get lucky. Of course, maybe that surveil was a little lucky, but he knows that he put in the time. He had the testing team behind him of Team Worldly Council and stuff to be able to help him out. It wasn't an accident that he won it, Anuraag, and I just love that interview.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the stats, right? Over a decade of playing on MagicOnline, over 30,000 matches played. To say I deserve it is an understatement, if anything else. Yeah. So congratulations, Mogged, for taking down the MagicOnline Champion Showcase. Really proud of your accomplishment, and best of luck in the World Championship later this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Running it back from a result he didn't get last year, not necessarily doing as well as he wanted at Worlds last year, but Mogged, of course, wasn't the only player that played this tournament, so let's unwind and let's check out how everybody did here. We see Matthew Wright up in the top left, where went 5-1, went 3-0 in the cube draft, and then still had a very respectable 2-1 in Modern to be able to have the best record across. We see Mogged here in second there with that 4-2 record. It honestly doesn't really matter your records here, as long as you made it to the finals. You were able to put yourself in a position to take it down. David Inglis and Andre going 4-2 as well with some great finishes. Piotr at 3-3, Fernando at 2-5, and then not the best tournament here for John and Carl, but this is an extremely difficult tournament. And of course, in the finals there, we had Matthew Wright up against Kikidis here, Mogged, to be able to take it down. Now let's see how much cashola all these players earned here. Anuraag, walk us through this.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it at the very top of our leaderboard. We have Charalampos Kikidis with $13,000. You know, taking that finals is a hefty amount of cash there. And, you know, second place, no joke at all either. Matthew Wright walking away with 11,000. Yeah. You have Andre Klepach and David Inglis both at 4 and 2 with 7,000. Piotr Glogowski at 5. Fernando at 3, and then John Ramos and Carl Surratt both at 2, totaling out to that 50,000 total prize pool, which honestly, that is a lot of money. And you know what, given the intensity of the tournament, it's great to see the payout this way.
Oh yeah, that's why it's just so incredible to make it here. You know, you can absolutely bomb your tournament, not saying Carl and John did, but you can just really not have the best results and you still walk away with a lot of money. So qualifying for an event like this is insane. So go to mtgo.com/premierplay if you want to be on this list of 8 players for the next season. So, well, there's really only one thing left for us to do, and that is to thank everyone here from the bottom of our hearts. You know, I mean, these events do not get run if it doesn't come from a lot of hard work from all the people behind the scenes. You know, we have Torbjorn, we have Tony making this work, we have Bob doing the production. You know, I got Anuraag as a great dance partner to do this. We got all the players, all the people editing, all the people making the graphics, all that kind of stuff to make an event like this really happen. So huge thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Big thank you to Daybreak. Big thank you to MagicOnline, and of course, Beacon. Let's do one more shout out here from Beacon. If you want to gain access here to one of these really incredible Beacon mic plus stands, you can do so by just leaving comments below. Tell us about your favorite moment from this entire tournament. We're going to be selecting one of those comments as a winner on January 30th here at the end of the month, and we'll be sending you this Beacon mic plus the stand. This is for US only here, so keep that in mind if you do end up wanting to win this. But yeah, maybe you want to start your streaming career, something like that. Beacon products are definitely the way to get you going. And then Anuraag, walk us through one more way to maybe get some play points.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested to get another set of 500 play points, perhaps you're interested in playing some high stakes modern challenges or drafting alongside Corey and I in some of these cubes that are firing constantly, leave a comment in this video, and what we'll do is we'll pick the top rated comment to win 500 play points to continue enjoy playing Magic Online. This is an incredible opportunity, and I hope to see you on the battlefield.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. That brings us to the end of this show. Once again, thank you so much. We thanked all the people behind the scenes that make this work, but this show means absolutely nothing if it wasn't for all of you watching. So, yeah, Anuraag, any last words?
This was an incredible tournament to watch. I definitely know I'm going to go back and watch some of the clutch moments, you know, that we got to experience today. Modern is fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to see where it goes with the changes that we've got. A great first step here at the end of this tournament today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you at the next Magic Online Champion Showcase. See you later.